Hi there, gorgeous, and a very happy Frugal Friday to you. If you are new to the channel, welcome. I make videos on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Fridays are my drugstore series called Frugal Fridays, where I focus exclusively on drugstore makeup. So please subscribe so you don't miss out on any videos coming out in the future. Today I'm reviewing 3 new Rimmel palettes to hit stores. These are ones I have been hunting for since the beginning of the year because they promised us that they would be in Walmart stores on January 1st, but I think there was a little bit of a delay because these didn't show up in my local Walmart until very recently, and I know many of you have been discovering them also. So I'll be showing you up-close swatches with each of these palettes today, mini tutorials showing you a look with each palette, and I'll give you a full review on each one. Are any of these worth getting or not? Beginning with the Rainbow palette from Rimmel. This has a mixture of very bright, loud, colorful shades within it in a mixture of mattes and shimmers. And for the look that I created with this palette, I used the bright orange in the crease, very vibrant shade, easy to apply, very easy to blend. For the inner third of the eyes, I applied the bright yellow shade located smack dab in the middle of the palette, and this one was so disappointing. I could barely get it onto my eyes, and when I went to apply it, it was very crumbly. It started to fall apart. I tried applying it wet. Nothing I did would help me get this eyeshadow onto my eyes evenly and anywhere near as pigmented as when I had first swatched it. So I was really disappointed in the quality of this eyeshadow. Then I took the acid green shade from the palette and applied this onto the middle of the lid. And this one was okay in pigmentation. I wish it would have been a little stronger. I had to really layer this one to get it to show up on the eyes, which was really disappointing. I used what appears to be a deep green teal from the palette and applied that on the outer third of the lid and blended this up into the outer V. And this is what I would consider a shimmer matte shade. It has a tiny amount of sparkle, but it leans more matte, and it's really pigmented and easy to apply. The look did come together beautifully, but I did really struggle with 2 of the eyeshadows in the application that I showed you. And the same can be said of a lot of the eyeshadows in this palette. The pigmentation isn't as strong from pan to eye as it is from pan to swatch. And that was very disappointing for me, especially when I've experienced really good Rimmel eyeshadow palettes in the past. Unfortunately, this is not one of them, and I feel like you're going to be really disappointed when you try to use a few of these eyeshadows, so I would say skip the Rainbow palette. Next palette I'm reviewing for you here is their Wow palette. When I first saw this one, I wasn't wowed by it and I wasn't excited by it. I felt like the color range in here was rather dull and boring, and it's been done so many times already that I wasn't excited about it. And while I did like the look I created with it, it's just not my favorite color range. To create the look that I'm showing you here, I used the silver shade in this palette and applied it all over the lid. A lot of pigment with this, very easy to get it to apply. Loved that about it instantly. Then I took the deepest navy blue eyeshadow from this palette, applied it into the crease, and again, great pigment with this one. I didn't struggle at all to get this onto my eyes, and it applied beautifully. Last eyeshadow I took from this palette is the one that I would describe as more of a copper tan, and I used that to blend out the edges of the navy blue eyeshadow that I had used in the crease before. Beautiful. I didn't struggle with any of the eyeshadows to create this look. They all looked just as vibrant from the pan to the eye as they were from pan to swatch. So I'm very happy to tell you that. But I went back and played with this palette a little more to experiment with the other eyeshadows because I like to really thoroughly test a palette before coming on here and making a video about it. And the white eyeshadow in this palette was very, ugh. You either really hit a white eyeshadow out of the park or you make a really big blunder. There's no middle ground when it comes to white eyeshadows, and sadly, Rimmel did not do a good job with creating this one. It's very sheer on application. It disappears when you try to apply it, and it's also very crumbly, like that light yellow eyeshadow that I talked about from the Rainbow palette. So I was really disappointed in that one. But if you take that one out of the equation, all of the other eyeshadows in this palette are richly pigmented. They apply beautifully, And if the color range speaks to you, go for it. This is a great palette to try. L'Oreal had a white eyeshadow many, many years ago. We're talking way before I ever got on YouTube, and I used it all the time. I replaced it a couple times actually because I went through it so much, but it was super pigmented, and I don't know why they ever discontinued it because it was a great eyeshadow. The next palette I have to share with you is the Thunderstorm palette. This palette contains a lot of neutral shades in here with a bright pop of color right in the center with that yellow shade. I'm wearing this eyeshadow palette in today's video. If you've been curious about what's on my eyes, this is it. And to create the look I'm wearing today, I took the matte deep green from this palette, applied it directly into the crease, really defining that crease and carving it out. Then I took this muted purple shade from the top of the palette, and I used that to blend out the edges of that darker green and diffuse any harsh lines. Using the shimmery green eyeshadow from the palette, I applied this to the outer third of the lid and the inner third of the lid, and I left a blank spot in the center of the lid. And in the center of the lid, I applied that really bright yellow, and you can see how wonderful the pigment is with this eyeshadow. I was so excited to see that because I was really worried that this yellow eyeshadow wasn't going to come across, but it really does. Obviously, this is a very bright look, and you can create more subdued looks with this palette, but I wanted to show you something using that bright yellow in the palette because it was one that really spoke to me when I first picked it up. Now, I have read that this is a dupe for the Kylie Cosmetics Storm palette. I think that's what it's called, but I don't have that palette to be able to compare the two for you. It's simply what I heard. So just take that with a grain of salt. If you've been looking for a dupe, you may be really happy with this one, especially at this price point. But I can tell you that all of the eyeshadows in here perform beautifully. I didn't experience any splotchiness, any fading, or anything like I did with the other two palettes. Every single eyeshadow in here has performed just as good as the Rimmel Spice palette. So this is one I absolutely recommend picking up if you really are interested in this color range, or you just want a new Rimmel palette. So out of all the palettes I shared with you today, I highly recommend checking out the Wow and the Thunderstorm palettes, but the Rainbow palette left a lot to be desired. This is one you have to layer constantly, and the eyeshadows fade. They're not as vibrant as what you see here. It's very deceiving, and it's really sad for me to tell you that because this is a really great range to mix in with your neutrals or if you like pops of color. So not the same quality as what we have become accustomed to from Rimmel. But let me know your experiences with these palettes if you've picked them up. Would love to hear your thoughts on them. And if you're interested in any of these, I will try to have them listed and linked for you below. They will be affiliate links, so if you click through and purchase, I'd like to say thank you in advance for helping to support this channel and our family. Thank you for taking the time to watch. I want to wish you a wonderful weekend ahead. Jet is going to his first birthday party. A friend of mine has a daughter who is turning 2 this weekend, so this is going to be really cute. I'm looking forward to that, and that's what we have planned. So I hope you have a great one too, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. We'll start with the Rimmel palette. It is a Rimmel palette. Beginning with the Rimmel Rainbow.